My family was down in Los Angeles over the New Year's holidays, and since it was rainy, we spent a lot of time in museums. At the Getty, I walked into a gallery of European Renaissance paintings, and I was struck by the most vibrant depiction of the Magi presenting gifts to the baby Jesus. And I came in this morning and I was struck again because I found out that Jenny had blown it up, a picture of it for us to look at coffee hour. So I asked her if I could bring it in here and show it to you here. So here's the picture that I saw in the gallery.
Or at least the blown up version.
Yeah, well, yeah. So I will we'll put it back at coffee hour so you can look at it along with the frankincense and golden myrrh, which is so cool. So if you look closely at this gift, at this painting, excuse me, you notice that you might notice that all of the figures are white-skinned, and except for one small person over here in the corner with dark skin, who I think might be this person's servant. And you might also notice that the baby Jesus is playing with a chest of gold coins. And you might have a mom brain that's like, oh my gosh, that is a choking hazard.
That's obvious.
So, if you have that critical eye, you might be noticing those things. But when I first saw it in the museum, I was not looking with that critical mind. I was just struck by the vibrancy of the figures that were so colorful against this intense red lacquered background, and it was so much more vibrant than anything else in that gallery. To walk in and see that there, knowing that this was my text for Sunday, was amazing. It was like this moment of sacred scripture breaking into a very sort of ordinary morning of herding the family through busy public spaces to ooh and ah at Van Gogh's irises and lots of modern sculptures. It was a reminder of how sacred stories shape our human journey, connecting us to one another and to God, making meaning through powerful symbols. Isaiah's oracle of salvation that we hear today comes to encourage forlorn people to remain hopeful and to look for God's light. They have returned to Israel from exile, full of hope, only to find the work of rebuilding nigh impossible, and to become frustrated and fractious with one another. To these people who can't get along and want to give up, Isaiah says, "Rise, shine, for your light has come. Nations and kings will be drawn to your light." This vision of hope, and all of Isaiah's visions, come from the prophetic imagination of a man so deeply connected to God that he can see God's vision and speak God's words to the people. Imagination can be seen as fanciful or childish or frivolous, as merely the cognitive faculty people use to make up outlandish stories. But it is so much more than that. It is a vital tool in our spiritual lives. It's a gift God has given us to allow us to dream of and hope for things that are different, things that are better than they currently are. In my first year practicing spiritual direction as an intern, I've encountered many people who have a hard time trusting their imagination for spiritual connection. Religious traditions often emphasize external authority over God-given guidance in our own imagination. But as we celebrate the Feast of Epiphany today, we have these wonderful readings about the importance of seeing something new and different through inner illumination, through imagination. We see the importance of spiritual epiphanies. The religious art at the Getty Museum is also inspired by theological imagination, as the artists took stories from Scripture and translated them with the symbols and aesthetic styles of their particular moment in history to reveal something of God through beauty. And certainly, the story of the Epiphany, of 3 wise men coming to present gifts to the baby Jesus, has captured our imagination through the ages. From fine art like this to those down-home Christmas pageants where kids are wearing, bathrobes and fun crowns. People love to depict the Magi as wealthy and exotic kings because they had those expensive gifts. They were powerful outsiders come to recognize the kingship of a poor child born in a barn. But this fascination may not have been what the gospel writer Matthew intended. Matthew's theological imagination is all about the scandal of the gospel. His stories of Jesus' life and ministry emphasize that God's kingdom will include and even prioritize people that society has deemed unworthy, dishonorable, dirty. These are the tax collectors and the sinners, the lepers and beggars, the fallen women that Jesus offers mercy and acceptance. Matthew opens his gospel with a genealogy that includes sexually scandalous women, proclaiming that God's love is for everyone, really, even them. In these stories that we see how Jesus' embrace of the scandalous gives his followers an uneasy feeling at first, until their imaginations catch up and they realize just how big God's love is. Because the wise men are so exotic and fascinating, the Christian tradition has largely overlooked that magi were practitioners of magic and divination, and that was forbidden by Jewish law and custom. Instead of honorable kings, picture a delegation of well-dressed, wealthy practitioners of something explicitly forbidden by your family's most sacred beliefs showing up to honor a newborn. That probably made them pretty uneasy. And that's the unease that Matthew's audience felt throughout the reading of his gospel. That unease is the scandalous truth that God's love is truly for everyone. If Isaiah's theological imagination gives a bold vision of hope to the dispirited, Matthew's gives an even bolder vision of inclusion and radical transformation of a society where no one is beyond God's love. And the Apostle Paul tells us that sharing this is his whole purpose in life. For Paul, a mystery has been revealed that from the beginning, God's love and mercy and peace have not been only for the chosen tribes of Israel, but for all people equally. For Jews and Gentiles, taxpayers and tax collectors, respectable women and fallen women, wise kings and sketchy psychics. Paul explains the mystery has been made known to humankind, has been revealed through Christ's holy apostles and prophets. That is, the ongoing revelation to the church leading to new epiphanies. People like Peter and Paul, who in the first decades of Christianity came to understand through their own theological imagination and encounters with God that God welcomed the Gentiles into the church without requiring them to convert to Judaism. They were accepted with their cultural identity as non-Jews intact, which was very scandalous to those first Jewish Christians. The discomfort of welcoming people without requiring them to become like us. Paul calls this the wisdom of God in its variety, which can also be translated as the multicolored wisdom of God. That's the literal translation. God is revealed and revealing through a diverse Christian community, including all kinds of people, as splendidly colorful as this painting. So here we are. We are the receivers of God's multicolored wisdom, the receivers of oracles of hope, like in Isaiah, and of the scandalous gospel of God's love, with our own capacity for theological imagination. As we begin our second year together in shared ministry as a small but mighty church, you may feel the honeymoon is over. How much has Amber really gotten done? You may be noticing all the work we still need to do. Sometimes it feels like 2 steps forward and 1 step back, like when we got this amazing new roof and then it blew away last week. Just some shingles on the barn. It's okay. But it is precisely moments like this, in moments of frustration or feeling forlorn, just like the people to whom Isaiah spoke, that we are called to look up or within for that guiding star. Like the early church of Peter and Paul stretching to welcome the Gentiles, we are tasked with the ongoing spiritual work of imagination, paying attention to the guiding stars of hope that God puts in our hearts, drawing us to new things. And we are embraced by the scandalous gospel that wraps us and those most unloved by society in God's warm mercy. Matthew demands that we pay attention to that shocking feeling when Jesus' first disciples had when they understood this scandal, so that we can notice who most needs God's love here and now, so we can make certain to extend it, so that all are truly welcomed in this place. Thankfully, we are the inheritors of Isaiah's oracle of hope and promise. Arise, shine, for our light has come, to inspire us to move forward with love and purpose, even when the task is hard. Then we shall see and be radiant, Isaiah says, and our hearts shall thrill and rejoice.